Anne Sullivan, Taking a Stand in History, National History Day Project 2017. In 1882, Helen Keller was affected by an illness which left her blind and deaf. However, in 1887, Anne Sullivan took a stand by using a different method of teaching, which resulted in Helen Keller becoming the first blind-deaf person to graduate college. Anne Sullivan was born on April 14, 1866, in Feeding Hills, Massachusetts. Her parents were immigrants to the United States from Ireland because of the Great Famine of the 1840s. Her father Thomas eventually left the family, leaving Anne and her brother Jimmy sent at a home for the poor called Tewksbury Almshouse. The conditions were dirty, crowded, and run down. Just after a few months, Jimmy passed away. This left Anne living alone. While Anne was here, she found out about schools for the blind and was determined to get to be educated at one. Anne was sent to Perkins School for the Blind and took on surgery to help improve her poor eyesight. She faced many obstacles at the school, being that she lacked social graces. This made it hard for her to have friends, and she was very embarrassed by her ignorance. Anne had a quick temper and liked to change the rules. This, of course, got her in much trouble with the teachers. However, she began to settle down after a little while, but never really felt like she fit in. Sullivan made close friendships with a few of her teachers. After her graduation, where she was the valedictorian of her class, the school's director, Michael Aganos, helped Anne find a job. The Keller family had written to him about having a teacher for their daughter, Helen Keller, who was blind and deaf. At the age of 20, Anne Sullivan moved to Tuscumbia, Alabama, to teach Helen Keller. In a matter of a few months, Helen learned 600 words, most of the multiplication times tables, and how to read Braille, thanks to Anne Sullivan's teachings. Helen was a rather stubborn child who was very spoiled by her parents. The way that Anne taught her was by making associations with physical objects and the words. Anne also isolated Helen from her family and began working to teach Helen to communicate with the outside world. Finally, Keller had a major breakthrough and found the concept of sign language with outside objects. Sullivan decided that Helen would benefit from the Perkins School's education. When the Keller family could not pay for Helen's education of the Sullivan's teachings anymore, many wealthy donors offered to pay for it. Sullivan helped Keller counting out her education at Radcliffe College in the year 1900. This resulted in Helen Keller being the first blind-deaf person to graduate college. Unfortunately, Sullivan passed away October 20th, 1936 in Forest Hills, New York. Anne Sullivan helped shape the way for educators today. She set high standards for her student Helen Keller. Even though Helen had major setbacks by being both blind and deaf, Anne still treated her the way she would treat any other student. This pushed Helen into wanting to learn and made her work harder, even though it was harder for her than it would be for other children. A quote by Anne Sullivan says, "Keep on beginning and failing. Each time you fail, start all over again, and you will grow stronger until you have accomplished a purpose. Not the one you began with, perhaps, but the one you'll be glad to remember." Thank you for listening to a documentary about how Anne Sullivan took a stand in history.